and ideas. He came, he saw, he contributed. Today, VT International, along with Vivanta Coimbatore, welcomes you to the 6th annual Daniel Memorial Lecture on the topic of thriving in the midst of uncertainties. This annual program began in 2015, in line with Jethro's spirit of service, keeping before society's leaders the responsibilities each one of us owes to our community and to the future generations that come after us. The Daniel Memorial Lecture aims to enable individuals to draw from the well of potential that is written within them, in order to become active, thriving, and contributing members of society. Vivanta Coimbatore has always considered it their privilege to serve the community around them, and his platform created for the purpose of enlightening and educating human life to be other-centered, resonated with them and has resulted in this collaboration. I would now like to welcome Mr. Sumanjit Tiwari, General Manager of Vivanta Coimbatore, to welcome the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, all. It's my privilege and honor to welcome all of you for this gathering of 6th Dr.Daniel Memorial Lecture, and it's given me extremely delightment that some of our colleagues have been experienced and had opportunity to interact, though I could not get it, which is I missed it out. But I had opportunity to have some interaction, some this thing in 2019. But due to pandemic, we could not meet all of you. And I know with a lot of you had a very important schedule and took out your important time to come and grace this occasion and to understand once again the learning and reflection of Mr. Daniel. And I like to thank all of you to come here on behalf of Mr. Daniel family, and we are extremely delighted that we have been always been part of this important event, and looking forward our association to continue, and we always have true learning and reflections which unspoken but written in a book, and which we all cherish and we will cherish forever. Thanks once again for giving me opportunity to come on the dais and speak. Thank you so much, sir. I welcome all of you on behalf of Mr. Daniel family, and we will proceed further. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Ms. Rhoda Daniel, Senior Admin Officer, VT International, to deliver the key address.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to request all those who are still at the back, can you please take your seats so that you get the benefit of this program today. And there are some seats at the front as well. So, yeah. All of you seated here today, we are meeting after 2 years, will agree with me when I say that uncertainties is a word that we are all very familiar with, especially in the last few years, where there has been uncertainty after uncertainty after uncertainty. Don't you all agree? Yes. At 8 p.m. on 24th March 2020, when the Prime Minister of India called for a complete lockdown of our nation by midnight, a nation of 1.3 billion people, there was uncertainty. When the 21-day complete lockdown turned into an almost 70-day one, there was again uncertainty. When people were fighting for hospital beds, people were fighting for medicines, people were fighting for oxygen in the first quarter of 2021, fighting for their lives, fighting for space, fighting for air to breathe, there was again uncertainty. When the third wave hit in early 2022, passing swiftly from person to person, 4 times as infectious as the original virus, again there was uncertainty. Most of us seated here today, directly or indirectly, have faced these uncertainties over the past few years, either through the loss of health, the loss of the lives of loved ones or friends, or the loss of employment. Unfortunately, the uncertainty does not end here. Now, I'm not announcing that there's another wave of corona coming, don't worry. In the last few years in India, the freedom of speech and expression, especially those of minorities, human rights activists and journalists, continues to be curtailed in multiple instances. That is again uncertainty. Mainstream media is fighting for their lives to remain free, and some of you might say they've lost their fight. Uncertainty. The false seeds of discord are being sown, pitting class against class, religion versus religion, people against people. Uncertainty. It has reached a point where there is a question whether the world's largest democracy can still be called a democracy. Uncertainty. Add to that our day-to-day frustrations of life, of managing our finances, building our careers, taking care of our families. We find ourselves in a very uncertain world. In the midst of all this unpredictability, many of us think that the only way we can make it through life is to carry on living our day-to-day life, living it day in and day out, day in and day out, until the day we die. But my question is, why are we thinking that we need to just survive? Why are we thinking that we need to get to the day we die, just arriving there unscathed, not happy, not thriving, but just unscathed? Why is it that we think that this is our lot? Why is it that we think that we just have to get by? Isn't there more than this? Shouldn't there be more than this? I think there is. And not only me, there are countless philosophers, thinkers, intellectuals, and other enlightened individuals who have thought about this and continue to think about this in the same way, that a better way of life is possible. A better way of life is possible where we not only survive, but we thrive. Hence the topic here today. So let me paint you a picture in your mind as you sit here today, preparing your mind to receive and to equip yourself to go out into this world tomorrow. This is a way of life where we do not let the challenges of life anger us or frustrate us, but accepting those challenges, we live in peace and with joy. This is a way of life where we feel and we know that we have enough. And being content with what we have, we are able to share with others. A way of life where we have a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong, and we function according to that strong moral code. And we step in when there is injustice or malice that is becoming the norm in the world. A way of life where love and concern for the welfare of others is at the forefront of our mind at all a daily basis, knowing that there is a purpose and meaning to all that we do in our life. A way of life where our goals are not only limited to ourselves or our families, but it grows to cover the entire human race as a whole. This is the possibility of life I want to talk about today. Life will continue to have challenges. We can't change that. But as E.F. Schumacher has said, the higher faculties of man accept the challenges of life as they are offered without complaint, knowing that when things are most contradictory, absurd, difficult, and frustrating, then, just then, life really makes sense as a mechanism provoking and almost forcing us to develop towards higher levels of being. Higher levels of being allow us to live a life as it was meant to be lived. Not a fearful, scared, self-centered existence, but a life filled with dignity and grace and compassion and love, courage, self-actualization, and transcendence. Who wouldn't want to live a life like that? Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the Roman Empire, is known as the last good emperor. In his personal journal wrote this: "Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions and dispositions." Even as a very powerful emperor, he was no stranger to his actions being impeded by things beyond his control. We all can connect with that, even though we are not powerful emperors. In his reign of 19 years, he faced constant war, a horrific plague, possible infidelity, an attempt at the throne by one of his closest allies, repeated long, arduous journeys across his entire empire, a rapidly depleting treasury, an incompetent and greedy stepbrother who was also coincidentally his co-emperor, and many other situations that we would definitely call as uncertainties. Yet, he is known as the last good emperor, because in spite of all these uncertainties, or as he believes, because of that, he practiced virtues like patience, humility, courage, justice, reason, and ruled his empire not only with authority, but with humility and competence. Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions and disposition. The question that I raise then to you is, what do we do when we are faced with life, with things beyond our control? Do we let fear, anxiety, and frustration envelop us and drown us? Or do we transcend these by swimming to higher ground, a ground where acceptance, peace, joy, and enlightenment prevail? This is a choice that you and I have to make through the course of our lives. And if you have not made that choice yet, I hope that today, after hearing all that you will in the 6th annual Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture, that you will make the right one. Thank you.
Thank you, Rola. It is now time for the memorial lecture to be delivered by the resource persons and the parents to Jethro, Dr. Daniel Victor and Mrs. Lata Daniel. Dr. Daniel Victor is the co-founder and managing director of VT International Accounting Services Private Limited and the founding trustee of Jethro Trusts. Mrs. Lata Daniel is the senior vice president, finance and compliance of VT International Accounting Services and trustee, Jethro Trust. Both of them are uniquely qualified to talk on the topic thriving in the midst of uncertainties, as they share their experiences of what it took to raise a child amid uncertainties with love, faith, commitment, and hope, and how Jethro, despite of his limitations, transformed his life to be one with meaning and contribution. I welcome Dr.Daniel to begin the lecture.
Good evening, everyone. How many of you know where will you be tomorrow at say 6:45 p.m.? Can any one of you say with certainty where you will be at 6:45 p.m. on 9th December 2022? I think the answer is unanimous. Nobody knows where they are going to be at that time. Rhoda shared a lot about the various uncertainties that we faced in the past couple of years due to Corona. But Corona is not the only uncertainty that we have faced. We have faced loss of loved ones, sudden health issues, cancer, accidents. We have faced so many uncertainties in our life, and it just comes suddenly because it's uncertain. Now, if you want to know the meaning, what is the uncertainty? It means the state of being uncertain. That is uncertainties. And what does thriving mean? Thriving means being successful, developing. Now, in uncertainty, how are we talking about thriving, being successful, developing yourself in all these uncertainties which happen in your life? It's not easy. We just think about managing our life. How do we manage our life? How do we manage the uncertainty which comes into our life? How can we stay afloat and not sink? That's the question that all of us have. But how can we thrive? And today, in my time which is given to me, I'm going to share about how I faced uncertainty and how I dealt with it in my life, and how Jethro faced uncertainty and how did he deal it in his life. Now, did I face any uncertainty in my life? Getting to know 8 months after Jethro was born that he had a condition called cerebral palsy. Definitely uncertainty, total disruption of one's life, and we had no clue what his condition was. And we had to look, we suddenly are faced with a problem and we are wanting to find a solution. And in our case, because the problem was medical, we looked for solution medically. We went to various hospitals, we went to the various doctors, trying to find out what is the problem and what is the solution. We are all rational beings, and we also think, all of us think in the same way. When we have a problem, we think about it and we see what is the solution to this problem. And then we wonder, why did we come in such a situation in the first place? But we had no answer. After going around various hospitals and doctors, the final verdict was given. And the final verdict was no different than the first diagnosis which the doctor gave in Navi Mumbai on the eve of our 5th wedding anniversary. In his own words, I repeat, he will be like a vegetable. Do not expect anything from him. Jethro will be like a vegetable. Do not expect anything from him. Now we get into a reset mode and we say, what do we do? Everything changes for us. We now have to take care of a special needs child. What do? We are not equipped. We don't know what to do. And you have a situation, and how do you handle that situation? I was 28 at that time, 28 years old. And I could have thought, my life has to be on hold now. I have to spend the rest of my life taking care of a disabled child. I have to be the caregiver 24/7. How am I going to manage? I could have been angry. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? How can I do this? Then of course, in husband-wife situation, or in any situation, we like to blame each other. It's because of you. This has happened. And we could have just gone on and on. And anxiety, what will happen? Because we had no idea how this whole thing will pan out. What will happen 10 years down the line? What will happen 20 years down the line? We had no idea. So at that time, what do we think about? How will we handle it? And the worry of what will happen to him if I die? Who will take care of him? Those are the kind of questions that can come into our minds and emotions that can run through our minds. Now look at Jethro's angle. What would be his emotion? He could immediately say he would have a guilt, a shame, a sense of being a prisoner in his own body because he can't move in his own. He would be totally dependent, so he can't do things on his own. So he could be filled with guilt, that he is a burden. So many different things, the emotions that can happen. Now here I would like to introduce you to the map of consciousness from the book Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So he says, we are all born with a level of consciousness, an energetic frequency within the vast field of consciousness. And with the map of consciousness, we can truly understand the total spectrum of human consciousness. Now what he did was, he used a unique muscle testing method and conducted 250,000 experiments, calibration during 20 years of his research. So he did a lot of research to define a range of values, attitudes, emotions that corresponds to the level of consciousness. This range of values, along with a logarithm scale of 1 to 1000, became the map of consciousness. That is what is shown here, which Dr. David R. Hawkins first wrote about in his book, Power versus Force. Now if you look here in this particular slide, we look at the emotions that I talked about earlier, which is shame, guilt, anger. They are all at a very, very low score. Maybe this will be more clearer for you. Very, very low score. 20, 30, 50. It's not going beyond 200. Now, sitting here, I believe all of you are very highly successful people, great achievers. And I think all of you would like to be at the highest score possible. You don't want to be at the lowest score. From 1 to 0 to 1000, I'm sure you want to be definitely more than 500 or 600. So how these emotions that we are feeling are at such a low score? Think about it for some time. Now going back to how did we handle our situation? How did I handle these uncertainties? Let me tell you that cerebral palsy, I had no idea what cerebral palsy was. I had literally no idea. And we were not in the days of Google to type the cerebral palsy, see the images, see the condition, read about it, and understand it. We were not in that. And I remember, so our family as a whole had zero clue of what cerebral palsy was. And I remember the day of our 5th wedding anniversary, we had been to my sister-in-law's place in Mumbai. And my in-laws were living with her at that time. and my mother-in-law just asked me a question after we had narrated our trip, our visit to the doctor and what the doctor had diagnosed. She just asked me, is he going to live or die? Is he going to live or die? I had no answer. Such was our unpreparedness in that it's such an important event of our life. We were so unprepared that we had no idea whether he's going to live or die or what is going to happen. Uncertainties don't come with warning. And you all are aware of Corona, that it didn't come with any warning. It just came unexpectedly. We were not prepared and it just came. So that's how uncertainties come. But one of the first sentences that my husband said after we were leaving the hospital was, in the car, he said, God will undertake. God will undertake. And that became an anchor on which we stood all the years of taking care of him. Now, even before Jethro was born and even before my marriage, I had understood that I am not born accidentally. I had understood that I am not here accidentally. I have a purpose in my life. And I knew that, understood the meaning of life, and I knew that I had a purpose and I'm not created just by accident, and I'm not here just to live and do the mundane things of life. As what I was talking about, you can be just living your life doing the same thing again and again. We are here to bring an impact. And because I believe that, it was easy for me to conclude that even Jethro, with all his disabilities, with all his inabilities, was not born accidentally. He too had a purpose in his life. He too had a place in the world to make an impact. So that was the premise on which I and my family, my husband and Rhoda, we all believed the same thing. And that is the faith and hope that we had. Now, what is faith? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We're not seen it, but it is evident. Martin Luther King Jr., he says it more simply. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole stairway. You don't see the whole stairway. You don't know where the end is, but you just take the first step. That is faith. And that is what we did. I drew strength from above. Jethro drew strength from above. And the journey was not easy. If you want to know more about Jethro and the difficulty that we have, you can see the documentary which is there in the YouTube channel, Power of Love and Commitment, Jethro Daniel's story, in which we have shared a bit, because he's also featuring in that, about the difficulties that we had in raising him. But because I had that faith and I knew that my purpose was at that time taking care of Jethro, it became my strength. That I could do it without complaining. I could do it without grudgingly, and you could do it so many ways. Okay, it's your duty, it's your responsibility, but I never did it like that. I didn't do it as a duty or responsibility. I did it out of love. I did it out of joy. And same thing I can say for even Jethro. Jethro's faith girded him. And to take his situation in his stride. He took his situation in his stride. And became relevant. Now, we couldn't be constantly with him because we were working also, and it was not humanly possible to be with him all the time. So how did he spend his time? He loved quietness. He loved contemplating. He loved being quiet and thinking about various things. And I think he knew that he was here for a purpose. And he fulfilled that purpose through the poems that you all have a booklet. You can see, don't mess around with his poems. His poems are so relevant for people even today. And he had found and I will take note of it. Show me your smallest wish, and I will make way for it. Without me, you're not complete. Without me, you're not fulfilled. Now this poem gives a glimpse of his faith and his feelings about God. Man is created in God's image, and man has to evolve. And we are not here to be just doing the mundane things. We are for greater purpose. Our life journey is meant to reach greater heights. Now let us look at the higher end of the map of consciousness. What does it say? Hopefulness, acceptance, joy, love, peace. These are all at the higher level of consciousness. Now if we dig deeper into our lives and have the faith and know what our purpose in life is and choose to follow it, we will be definitely moving to the higher plane and going to the higher emotions that is expressed here, the map of consciousness. So let us be responsive, not reactive in any situation that is faced with us. The energy that comes from drawing our strength from above is immense, and I believe that is the energy and that is the strength which helped me to even take care of Jethro so many years. If you know your purpose, then any uncertainties or adversities that you have that will come your way will only be a means to achieve your purpose. If you know your purpose, I repeat, if you know your purpose, so any uncertainties or adversities that may come your way is only a means to achieve your purpose. Now imagine if we had responded the same situation in anxiety, fear, and a lot of desperation and frustration, what would have happened? Because when you go in that low emotions, what happens? You don't see reasons. You become irrational. And that is what we see in majority of cases when we see people in villages, when they have a child like this, they act irrationally and they give up the child. They have so much of fear, they have so much of anxiety, they have so much of frustration, and they just give up the child. So that is irrational behavior. And we are unable to see clearly. But what we did was, we embraced our situation. We embraced our circumstances. Now your circumstances may look very, very bleak. When the doctor said, Jethro will be like a vegetable, Daniel used to carry him and say, kiss him and say, world champion, you're a world champion. And when the doctor said he won't be doing anything, we used to take him to the shop and he used to choose his own clothes, pointing to the clothes with his shoulders. And we are the ones who just thought, okay, he may be, Daniel said, put the alphabets in front of him and let's see, he will know the alphabets. And he did. So those are going beyond what the doctor said. Now you could be very unhappy with your situation and get bogged down, but ultimately it is your choice. You need to choose what is best. Now the challenges are what make you what you are. Now challenges are what makes life interesting. I'm not sure how many of you agree, but I keep telling that quite a lot to Rhoda also, that if there are no challenges, life will be very boring, isn't it? If there are challenges, life is interesting. And if you overcome it, overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. So let's come to that stage of overcoming, because challenges are going to be there. Life is not without any trouble. Everybody, I don't think there is anybody seated in this room who will say that I have no challenges, I have no troubles. Everybody has got challenges. And how we are dealing with it. How we need to face these challenges. and purify ourselves and get inner strength. Have you seen how they purify gold? They put it in fire with so much of heat to make it precious. Only after it goes through that rigor that its value increases and it becomes very strong. So that is what happens in our lives, that we become very strong. We get the strength by all the adversities that come our way. One thing which I did very intentionally is I was always with like-minded people. Don't be with people who bog you down, who give negative comments, who make you feel something is wrong. So in our family, because Daniel had the same view, Rhoda had the same view, we all had the same view, we kept ourselves together. And we made sure we encouraged each other. So that helped in us taking care of Jethro. So the challenge was not a challenge. It was a joy. Even today, if somebody comes and asks me, it must have been very difficult for you to take care of Jethro, you would have to carry, you have to feed, I would say no. It was a joy. We loved taking him out, we loved doing everything with him. And so this particular poem of Jethro is a lot to do with a choice. What does it say? Your mind is the place where battles are fought. You strengthen it with good for you to be a victor. You strengthen it. It is your choice. And you let it be filled with evil for you to be a failure. So you let it be filled. That is again your choice. So what are you choosing in your mind? What are you choosing to do? Now everyone who knew Jethro would always say that he's got a smiling face. He's always smiling. Unless he has some pain or he wants to get attention, he cries. Otherwise, he's always smiling. You can see all his photographs. I was going through his photographs and picked some pictures. Most of them are just smiling pictures. And recently also Daniel, when he sent about this program to one of our consultants, he also mentioned in the text, he said, I still remember his pleasant face. So it is unforgettable. So he always had that joy. And interestingly, I am also categorized in the same way because I also am one which I think my family will endorse it always. I'm smiling and laughing. And I think even in the office, everybody who knows me knows that I'm always with a smile. Now this laughing and smile is not just now. It was even when Jethro was in my arms, when I was feeding Jethro, taking care of Jethro. Even at that time, I was smiling and laughing. So the joy and peace is from within. And that makes me what I am. Now where is all this in the level of consciousness? Joy, peace, love. That's all at a high score. So don't you want to have that high score in your life so that you can achieve that? Love is at 500. So our family gave love regardless of his situation. Regardless of the fact that doctor said he is nothing. Nothing is possible. But we didn't bother about that. We just gave him love. We poured out our love towards him. And I want to share one story of, I have a maid who doesn't stay full time, but she used to take care of Jethro during the day when I was at work. And at one instance, we had to go to Uti to Rhoda's school for one of her functions, and we had my mother-in-law staying with us. And we asked somebody to come and live with her during the nights so that she could be taken care of, and during the day we had our maid. And at one point later on, I think the maid and this lady were talking. And later on I got to know about the conversation. And what was the conversation about? Now this maid has worked for many years in different places, different homes. And maids, I think in India, are ones who know what is going on in each house. Everybody knows that. Now this lady, she said, I have worked in so many homes. I've seen people cribbing, irritated, shouting at each other, husband, wife, or raising their voice, or something or the other, they'll always be. But this house, I don't know. They have such a challenge. They have this boy whom they have to feed. And if you see him when I feed him, the first mouth will always be a vomit. He'll vomit and then I have to clean him and then I feed him again. So it's not a very easy spoon feeding like how you see in the ads and all. You see how mothers feed their child. It's not like that. And so she's seeing all that and she's saying that I see them with so much of challenge, the way they are challenged with this boy. But I never see them raising their voice. I never see them getting irritated with each other. They're always smiling. Both of them are always smiling. So where is that smile coming from? Troubles are going to be there. Just as Rhoda said. There is no end to troubles. There are no end to uncertainties. Corona may have gone, but some other uncertainties may be right around the corner. How are we going to deal with it? Now for the 19 and a half years, my purpose was to take care of him, which I did very happily, never grumbled. But now it's 7 years since he's passed. What has happened? Has my purpose gone? Did it die with him? No. I'm still having a purpose in my life. And that choice of having that purpose gives me joy, peace, contentment. Troubles will be there. Let's learn how to deal with these troubles. Now, if a disabled boy could live with such high level of consciousness, and I like to call myself a small town woman from Kanpur, can live a life with such high level of consciousness, what is stopping you all to live that same life? I leave that question with you. Jethro lived 19 and a half years. Instead of being at the lower end of the consciousness, he was at the higher end. And he just didn't think about himself, but he thought about others. He went beyond himself. And now I call upon Daniel to deal with this aspect of Jethro's life. Thank you.
So good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are here a family with a burden for all that is around us. We are not here to bring back a fresh memory of Jethro for the sake of it, for the sake of our own feeling and pride. We are earnestly committed as citizens of India to the responsibility that lies upon our own shoulder. As we've grown in years, we've seen so much of a spasm between what we desire in our aspirations, in what we have actually set for ourselves in our constitution, and all that our sages have told us and taught us. We have often bemoaned the fact that the aspiration lies there, but the reality lies here. The serious burden more is, what is it that we are doing concertedly about this gap? We are all privileged, educated, class of people. Our general reaction to anything that requires serious attention is immediacy. We don't postpone something that is more important. And I always say, if there is preciousness, like gold, we wouldn't mind losing artificial jewelry. But if a precious bead of gold is fallen under the chair, the whole family is searching in order to get the piece back. As rational beings, we pay high attention to what is most important. Now help me understand why this gap. So in the context of the gap is why we are gathered here, together with all the support and the solidarity that Vimantha has been showing all these years as our own way of actually making a contribution in society rather than just be spectators, bemoaning and not doing anything. Now in the business world, that has become a very common use, said hookah, not the hookah, but the WUCA. I don't know how you pronounce it, but the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment that we are all faced with, that we all want to meet with. Catch it by the horns, if possible, and get outcomes that don't really shatter us. That's generally the condition. And as already mentioned, Jethro was definitely in that condition well before the COVID, and so were we. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and an ambiguous situation that we faced. Jethro, even for that matter, we had once wondered what had happened to his ears. And believe me, he had arms that was of no use. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move around and help himself in any way. And we later found that when we took him to the doctor, the fly had gone into his ears and maggots were found inside. So when the doctors examined him, this was the reality of a boy who lay helpless all through his lifetime, said in a certain way. What was his interest? We thought boys like cars, unlike the girls who like the dolls. So we took him to shops like that. And I used to carry him and I took him around and tried to show him all the displays and this, that he would nudge towards something indicating that he wanted. Believe me, I've gone through shops in that fashion, he never expressing any time, any day that he wanted a car. But he surprised us one day when we were buying some alphabets, or rather trying to get a gift for one of our friends' daughter. And the shopman showed plastic alphabets in a plastic bottle. And my son was not even a part of the shopping, my wife was doing the shopping, and he bent towards those alphabets, indicating to our surprise that he liked those alphabets. And we wondered what we will do with those alphabets, because this boy is so crippled. And there's not going to make any sense for us to have it, but we decided to have it because that was the first thing that he liked, and we wanted to give it to him. And we soon learned that he could actually recognize these alphabets. We learned that he could point to them in sequence. And we with our mind found that he could actually form sentences by that selection, form words. And we also realized, even when he was 4, that he had a taste for poetry. In order to help his sister, 3 years older than him, to remember the cardinal directions, so he formed the simple poetry at the age when he was 4. Little nose to the north, south hardly behind, east on the sunrise side, west opposite. I said this for a reason. As a continuation of what my wife was saying, how much ever your life may be, Joseph, you were created for a purpose. Whoever you may be, we have friends here who lost their sight. There's a baby here I know whose mother sought my permission to carry because somewhat like Jethro. Whoever may you be, you were not created without a purpose. How do you find that purpose? We found it in the fact that he signaled to those alphabets. And you can also find it as to what you are generally tending to incline yourselves to. Are you saying no to even this, that you don't have a talent? I will not agree, because I believe all of us have been gifted with talents, maybe more. So these are fundamental beliefs that we need to settle in our hearts if we need to rise to the kind of stature that we need to in this short and uncertain lifetime of ours. And that's pivoted. Now, my wife talked about Jethro's contemplative moods. In fact, I had to actually instruct my maid that she shouldn't put, as a well-wisher, continuous TV streaming for this boy. The way she thought that she is making him happy, in order for him to really be by himself and to think and to explore beyond what the TV shows. And that's the practice we maintain in our house because we understood. So I'm imagining in my mind, if you were to set your heart in a manner that I am encouraging you to do, with solid convictions, let not anybody contradict that for you. Because ultimately the purpose of our life is to come alive to all of our own selves, and going beyond ourselves, and to, just as Jethro did, to draw from powers that are above, and to allow ourselves to really be the rapturous joy that we bring to lives around us. And I'm hoping in my heart, even as I speak, with all this investment that Vivanta and his management are making, and all that we are trying to plant into your minds, that there will be an unleashing of force right from each one of your hearts. The idea is not for an event. The idea is definitely for power to be unleashed by you coming alive, all of us coming alive, to become relevant to our context, which also was touched upon by Rhoda. And believe me, it is our solemn constitutional duty to live like that. I'm going to bring to you Jethro as a citizen. What are our learnings from it? So as we've seen, he set himself not in a mere manner that draws from base levels of existence of, irritability, anger, anxiety, and so on. So he gave himself anchor in his mind, I'm imagining, in order to render himself like a classy boy, freed from all the turbulence that these kinds of conduct of ourselves at the lower levels contribute to rise to a level higher and to become able thereby to see and to be sensitive to the world around and also be relevant to the world. That's the package he in his 19 and a half years without any schooling has left for us to ponder upon and to learn from. So you've seen the scale, and I always talk and ask people, none of us are so eager that our children should get 2%. 20 out of 1,000 is 2%. Chartered accountants are here. Would you want that kind of a percentage as your success measure? We of course tell our children, 90 is not enough, get 100. Look at your answer. The prospect of your greatness lies there, but you teach others to get 90 out of 100 and you wallow at a lower level without challenging yourself. And this boy stands as a model for all of us. That notwithstanding his circumstances, he ends up actually setting himself a higher target, not only in evolving, but also in continuity. That's where great fulfillment is possible. Now you may wonder, what is Daniel talking about? I read this is what Albert Einstein has said, the scientist. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that some spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, and one that is vastly superior to that of man. You heard Lata say, God will undertake. Clueless about the future, unfolding future, what it has, nothing. And the fact that I believe that God will undertake, who is God? We not see God. And he says that spirit manifests in the universe, one that is vastly superior to that of man. I am imagining that my life is incomplete without the reservoir of the power that I can draw, and it is freely available. Not that you need to earn to get it. You didn't have to consider that you don't have enough to get it. It's there for the asking. And are we availing it is a point that I want to leave in your mind. And Dr. David Hawkins was not a small, insignificant man. He's been knighted, he's been honored worldwide, and he's been considered the foremost teachers of enlightenment. So there is a scale. And it's not so by imagination you can't see the nature of ourselves. With typically tendencies to that which is easy, to grumble, to be anxious, to be fearful, and to surround us and muddle ourselves with all of these types, like a kitten would wrap itself with knots when given a bundle of wool. But there is a better way. The tragedy of our times is our failure to give utmost priority and attention to that which screeches for us to act upon, our inner weakness, to remain susceptible and wallow in the baser qualities of our life, and not pursuing the reconstruction of our lives with a vision for the elevated, for the noble, the worthy. The attention that it needs, we are unable to give. In the absence of such being our journey, we remain dwarfed in our aspirations, that we end living for ourselves. We scrounge for material well-being, and we take our sights off holding responsibility to continue to work to renew people and our planet. And we remain preoccupied with ourselves, caught with our rights and our entitlements, than being gripped by meaning and purpose and what we can give. Solzhenitsyn, Alexander, said this: the fight for our planet is physical and spiritual, and is a fight of cosmic proportions. Man has to recover spiritually beyond materiality. Evil, the problem at the very foundation of modern thought, the proclaimed and practiced autonomy of man from any higher force than him. We have finally achieved the rights of man, we may say, and even to excess. But man's sense of responsibility, he says, to God and society has grown dimmer and dimmer. So if you look around, you will notice some of us have become almost so centered on our own selves and have excluded deeper thoughts and live for the material well-being. Some of us have high ideals. We talk about truth, we talk about honesty, but it's just enough to scratch the surface to see how dishonest we are. We tell lies. We don't hesitate to break our contracts. It doesn't even sink into our mind that these are obviously offensive. They mar your conscience. These are shameful acts. These are the acts that generate guilt. In fact, I believe when your life is surrounded by that, then you are unable to see things clearly. And therefore you are building up anxiety, you're building up fear, and that's a lot of another bunch of people. As we see, we are all observers. We are all traveling this brief and uncertain journey of ours, and as we see, that's reality that we are noticing. And then on the other side, you see people who are craving for power. Power is good, but their intention is more for domination and control. Not so much for service. So that's the plight. And do we have to be relevant? Is it sufficient if we read and learn our subjects that are offered to us in our schools and our colleges, and our morals remain bankrupt, and there is no real major effort that is going on in a concerted way in order to really challenge ourselves as a society, as families, and as a community and as a nation? If there is no effort, then there is no outcome. We know our constitution, our founders have laid for us our rights, and I'm not talking about it just now, because I want to set before your mind what Mahatma Gandhi in fact said. The true source of right is duty. If we all discharge our duty, right will not be far to seek. If leaving duties underperform, we run after rights, and they will escape. And the more we pursue them, the farther they fly. So if you see duties as per chapter 4A of our Indian Constitution, and all of us, barring my colleague at work from the United States who is here, I believe we are all Indians. It's a duty to abide by the Constitution, to respect its ideals and its institutions, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle to freedom, to protect the sovereignty, the unity, and the integrity of our nation. I'm reading some of them. To promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood among all of the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional, and sectional diversities, renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. Preserve, value, and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. To protect and improve the national environment, the lakes, the rivers, the mountains, etc. It's a tall order. You can visualize, if you are just selfish, if you're all about yourself, fulfilling these ideals is going to be a challenge. So a sensible leadership requires granting ability for its citizens, granting vision for its citizens, granting provision for its citizens, to continue to keep setting this growth in the inner man as a daily, as a constant. Because if you don't so, you will never reap. Our children are not going to get educated even the way that they get educated unless there is an effort. And that effort has to be constant, continuous. How could you even expect that such noble ideals which charge the minds of those that fought for the freedom of India to render unto ourselves future generations the kind of composite, joyous, rich life for us to experience? How much, if you really critically analyze ourselves, we have failed as custodians and as responsible individuals. And we sit and blame everybody else. What halted you from taking that extra step every day to do that little more than mere survival? Is a question that I want to obviously place before your minds. What's Jethro's relevance? So Jethro talked about, in his poems which you will have time to see, man's incompleteness without God. Creation, and the need for our hearts to adore and revere with gratitude. Encourage us to abjure pride, walk humbly, eschew dishonesty, and embrace honesty. Encourages us to nurture children and teaching them the way they should go. Cautions youth to stay clear from temptations of the eyes and of the flesh. Encourages to commit completely to a sense of responsibility and diligence at work. As you saw in the poem on the mind, encourages exercise caution on your mind from where proceeds evil and good. And give love the tallest place, and to truth and to obedience. And finally, this particular encouragement to us to be not neglectful, but be socially responsible, this poem on nation is, wonderful is the state of my nation, Puji says. Charming its poise and its grandeur. Without truth and character, how barren do you look? Poised away, you were never meant to look. Waste no time of yours for refreshing. You take your time, all needed efforts to make. Without you, the state is bound to perish. And this is what I want to leave with you on your minds this day. And even want to add perspectives of others to what I have said. As Mother Teresa has said, we have not come into the world to be numbered. We have been created for a purpose, for great things, to love and to be loved. Viktor Frankl, the Nazi prisoner, he reflectively says, ever more people today have the means, but no meaning to live for. And Mahatma Gandhi has this to say, that the best way to find yourselves is to lose yourself in the service of others. Young and old, same message. It's not for somebody who is in his 40s, in his 50s. Jethro was not a teenager. The best way to find himself, he recognized and he acted upon, was to lose himself in the service of others, even as he is doing just now. If we are not centered larger than yourselves, ourselves, our life remains empty and unfulfilled. There remains a gnawing gap that refuses to get filled with the garbage of trivial pursuits, materials, and pleasure. We are meant to get into a higher gear of purified, purposive existence. The inner cleansing and clearer vision comes from our higher perspective. To cast aside our creature existence, riddled by shame, guilt, and apathy. Launching faith to overcome fear and grief, not effaced by diversity, open and embracing, giving scope for reason and curiosity, not falling a victim to obsessive desire, substituting our reactive behavior riddled by irritation and anger into responsive behavior, and turning our back to arrogance and pride. Entering thereby into the state of love. When embraced by love and honed in giving love, being filled with peace and joy, endlessly to be in a state of bliss, transfer into an higher self with God, to experience a sure sense of Him, to far reach the learned life to everywhere and to the ends of the world. It did not matter the length of life, but is contributively value to touch and strengthen self-institution, politics and economics, all for the good and emancipation of mankind. Stephen Covey says, recover your voice and help others recover theirs. I just want to lay this on your hearts as I conclude by a former Justice, Supreme Court Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Oliver Wendell Holmes. Unfortunately, many people die with their music in them. Thank you.
Each day, we are becoming a creature of splendid glory of our better version by our acts. Thanks for reminding us all to be so, sir. And ma'am, you shared so easily about the journey with Jethro with a smile. And that smile proved how he was a successful champion and not a vegetable anymore. Now it's time for us to reflect on these learnings as we listen to Jethro's song and further commit ourselves to practice what we have heard. Let us all rise to our feet as the song is played. I request everyone to stand. Thank you.
Boy,
Thank you all. Please be seated. Please turn on the lights. Thank you. As we have come to the end of this evening, I would like to call upon Mrs. Rini Maria, Assistant Catering Sales Manager of Vivanta Coimbatore, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening to all. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. Daniel Victor, Managing Director of Vita International, and his entire team who have worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable one for all of us. I would like to thank Mrs. Lata Daniel, who graced the occasion with her motivational insights. I sincerely thank all the distinguished invitees who are present here, accepting our invitation. I thank the members of the media for covering this event and all my colleagues for your cooperation in making this event a success. Once again, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Rini. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know: the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. Let's all strive to serve at all times. Thank you all for being a part of this evening. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much for this evening.
They're not good, possibly representatives of my sister.
No, no, no. Yes,
Thank you, ma'am. Sister. Okay.